All right, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to All That Jam. I'm here today with JJ Murphy. JJ, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I think this might be a first, actually, to have someone join us on the day of a show. And I'm so grateful to you for finding time so that we could do this. We've been chatting this
Absolutely.
week. Yeah, I've gotten to talk with a whole bunch of other artists that are going to be part of the Modern Jazz and Soul Festival, which is kicking off this evening in Boulder, of course, organized and presented by the great people over at Roots Music Project. And JJ, you are going to be playing tonight, I believe. Is that right?
Yep, tonight at 8:45.
Right. Yeah. So, knowing that this is the first of its kind, and also, being local to the scene, I absolutely loved hearing about this festival. And I felt like, yeah, there's actually a need for this, even in an area that has so much live music already. You
Hmm.
know, how do you feel about this event and kind of where you fit into all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm looking forward to it because I'll be able to see quite a few outstanding acts tonight and tomorrow as well. And I forget who I even said this to, but it's a little bit of like a collective of this whole scene. And I think it's a pretty interesting representation of it. And I'm really excited to see what comes out of it. Like I'll be able to have different conversations. We'll be backstage with different folks that I haven't been able to see in a little bit, or it's just, how it is. It's like sometimes we're gigging at the same time in different, parts of the city or whatever it might be. So I'm really looking forward to that too, just to see what grows out of this in years to come and what kind of collaborations end up happening.
That's something that actually I haven't thought about in that exact way before. And I'm so glad you brought that up. There is, in my opinion, very thriving live music scene out here. And I want to get your take on that in a second. But you're right. The chance to be in the same place as a lot of other artists, many of whom are from the Denver Boulder area, is a really amazing thing. Even if you already know them, yeah, I mean, everyone's doing their own thing. There probably isn't as much time to spend together or even think about collaborations maybe as you'd like there to be. But I would love to know, you've been a part of the scene for a long time. What's your take on this area, the appetite for live music and your experiences there?
No, absolutely. I mean, so I cut my teeth, so to speak, in Nashville for, what was it, 7 or 8 years before I moved here. And I was fortunate when I was based in Nashville to be able to play all over the country. And I just fell in love with Denver. I mean, we would always come back here, and there's something about this scene that, it has a smaller industry than a lot of other cities, certainly compared to Nashville or LA, New York, and that kind of thing. But I think the creative energy in the community here is something really special, even for anywhere in the country. And I think, like I was saying before, different festivals and different shows or concert series that are happening like this, where you see a lot of different acts get time to be on the same bill on the same night for at least once a year. It's like that's a really exciting thing that's going to happen in the scene here. And I think too, it's funny when I first moved here, it seemed like people would talk about Boulder and Denver as if they were separate scenes. And to me, being the new guy in town, so to speak, 5 years now, but it seems like really the whole Front Range of Colorado as a community and is a scene really. And I think maybe the metropolitan center of that is Denver, but I think we're going to see a lot of the core of this scene in Boulder tonight. So I think it just kind of depends where it's all happening and when the stars align, so to speak.
That's a very interesting point about the two cities, which of course are very, close proximity to each other. I'm actually trying to think to myself, how have I kind of put it together in my own head over time? And I do tend to merge them, I think, in some ways. But, in terms of Roots Music Project and what they're doing as a nonprofit, having a venue of their size, I think, is something that was needed. It's one of those things where even with so many amazing venues, a lot of which are still independently owned, to some degree, I think that there is a need for a venue of a certain size that really allows for artists to have opportunities to play. And I was chatting with Danny Kaminsky a couple of days ago for a student at CU Boulder. He'll be opening the main stage tonight. And he was saying something really interesting also, which is just having spaces for collaboration and to play out and to kind of have the experiences. I think he made an amazing point of saying to be able to make mistakes in front of people and learn.
Sure.
It was
you know
a
how
really,
that goes. Yeah.
it was a really, I think, wonderful, very astute comment. And I appreciated him kind of bringing that up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it does. And we've talked to a lot of artists who either have been based in Nashville, have moved there. Some of them have moved back here, actually, fairly recently. And, I've been out there, I've been to the Ryman. I used to live in North Carolina, so I was
okay.
making the rounds. Raleigh didn't have live music for a long time, so I was always seeking it out. And, that to me feels like a songwriter's haven.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say that for sure.
Is that kind of the focus, so to speak, of a lot of what
it's so hard to say because Nashville, I mean, I haven't been there, in 5 years now. So I know it's even grown since I've been there. But I think it's hard to compare Nashville to Denver for sure. They're very different vibes, for lack of a better word. But I think in Nashville, everything's really driven by the industry there. Now, granted, there's so much collaboration that happens in a pool of so many talented musicians, and I was so happy to be a part of it for as many years as I was. But I think the difference to me that I feel here in Denver compared to Nashville is that people really want to see what you have to offer as an artist versus, okay, how can we kind of find our path with this artist to be as commercially successful as we can? And, fair enough. I get it. We all got to make money, right? But I feel like here, a lot of the opportunities presented to me and afforded to me, and I'm really fortunate for them, is really people asking me to be myself and like, what can you bring to the table? And and like I said, there's no industry here compared to Nashville. So a lot of the bands, it's like, they're really out there doing their own thing, making their decisions and kind of doing it the old fashioned way, so to speak, and they're getting funding where they can and different record deals and that sort of thing. But it's still really, it doesn't have the engine of a major label behind it. And I think that has pros and cons, obviously, but I really like the pros of it out here.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about your music. This is one of my favorite things to ask artists. How would you describe the kind of music that you make?
Wow. It's a hard question. I wish that was a question that I could just have an easy answer to. And
it's usually not that easy. There's a lot that you do and a lot of genres that you really blend together. Do you have a kind of a foundation for where that
that's a great question, actually. No one's ever asked it like that before. I think to answer that, I think the foundation is jazz music, for a lack of, I keep saying that for lack of a better word, but I think to me what jazz music is almost more of a process and more of an aesthetic than it is a particular style or genre or particular groove or anything like that. I think it's, and then even it's hard to define jazz, so I'm not even going to try. But I think I like one of my favorite musicians, and obviously he's the golden standard for quite a few people, is John Coltrane, or I think as Sonny Rollins, Miles Davis, like these major icons that it's like we almost forget that they are the standard for excellence, so to speak, just because it almost goes without saying. But I look at how those icons, or another person that comes to mind too is Marita Schneider from the Maria Schneider orchestra. A lot of how she's operating, or how any of these greats are operating, is like they're always catering to what the music needs. We're going to put the music first, we're going to put the art first, and almost listen to that, put it up high and do what it tells us to do and take it from there, and I'm sure all of those people I've mentioned have had conversations with managers and booking agents and record labels and everything, with talking about, the commercial success of things and that kind of thing. But, I think if we kind of hope to follow in their footsteps, I think the music whatever it comes out, whether it be swing or funk or rock and roll, I think we're serving the music first. And that's, to me, the gold standard. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it makes so much sense. And as you're talking, I'm thinking I really like that way of describing it. And so as a follow-up to that, I'd be curious to know if doing what you just said, really kind of letting the music be the guide, is that something that you have felt has developed for you over time? Like, how has that changed? Being able to do that, has that changed?
You're asking some intense questions. I would say, well, I'm 35 now, so I feel like I was about to say I'm the oldest I've ever been, but of course I am. But I would say I think me getting kind of like, as we mature and evolve as human beings, I think we do the same with music, right? And I think when I got into music school or whatever, those were my heroes back then, Coltrane and so forth, and they still are now. And I think maybe as I've gotten older and hopefully evolved as a musician, I think maybe I could just see that aesthetic clearer, and maybe I can get to it a little bit better than I could yesterday, so to speak. And hopefully tomorrow I'll get to it even better. But, when you're younger too, there's a lot of distractions, and there still is. And I think musicians always talk about, our relation, our ego, right? And I think one thing I went through, and I know a lot of musicians go through, is like, you think of your ego as, you're like, I got a big ego because I'm the best or whatever. But I think a lot of us go through things where they're like, oh my God, I'm just the absolute worst conceivable musician there is. And I think as you grow up maybe a little bit, you kind of start to see yourself more realistically. And I think over the last, hopefully I'm not going on a tangent here, but over the last maybe 5 years or so, I've really started to develop a lot more respect with the listener or the audience itself. Like, how is this coming across to them? And I think, to me, in order to put my best foot forward with the audience, I have to be as honest as I can as a musician. And that requires so much self-reflection on how you're playing and how you're conducting yourself and how you're presenting your music, that I think, it's like the only thing you can do is just put that gold standard in front of you and just try to get to that the best you can. And I think over time, I've hopefully gotten a little bit better at it, but man, who's to know? Hopefully that made sense.
No, I mean, I dig it. So I'm not a musician. As a, longtime live music fan, that's my favorite thing to do. When being in the audience and seeing that honesty and all of what you just said happening, first of all, you can feel it.
That's good to know.
I can, and I think that's something that might be hard to tell in some ways from the stage. I don't know, but I can always tell, if someone's really, or a group, whether it's solo or otherwise, is really pushing to do something new, different, however that appears from the stage. It's like it speaks volumes,
I think you can hear that from, I would certainly say as a musician, you can hear that, or you can sense that from the stage. And I think, that's what I was kind of getting at, was the relationship to the audience is something that, for me anyway, it takes a while to mature and develop. And, and it, like anything, like your relationship to the audience and the listener, I think is an integral part of this whole thing, and sometimes that it just takes a while to develop, like anything else,
Yeah.
But
I love it. So I used to have an old radio show years ago, and the name of it was the Barline Shift, which is this kind of obscure jazz term. And I just fell in love with it when I heard it. And essentially it's a skipped note or phrase, something small. And the shift can be accidental. Usually it is accidental, but it could be something purposeful. And there's lots of examples of that. But I love the fact that there was a name for it. And basically the idea is that whatever that moment is adds authenticity, character, life to the performance, whatever's happening, you know, and I thought, you know, that's what life is. That's what, you know, true music is, in its purest form, is moments like that, whether you even catch it or not. And to me, that kind of sums up in a lot of ways how I feel about being able, the gift of being able to experience something happening in front of me. And I'm curious, in terms of collaboration, improvisation, whatever you'd want to call it, how do you approach that when you are on stage?
Oof, it's a tough one too. I would say, I mean, I know this sounds cliche and it's like maybe the answer for a lot of things, but it's like I try to clear my head as much as I can. And I know if I'm starting to think about anything as opposed to just reacting to what I'm hearing, or if I have maybe a bit of a preconceived notion to what things should sound like or what they should be or what direction they should go, I think that's kind of when I take it in a bad path, or that's when I get in trouble. But I think, you know, before we were recording or before we were live, we were talking about Caden too. And I think he's such a good example of, to me, when I see him on the stage playing, or in the few times when I've, you know, shared the stage with him, it just seems like he's a really good example of someone who can clear their head and just be really in the moment and reacting. And, you know, and then tonight with my band, I mean, that's one of the main things I think about when I put a group of musicians together. It's who's going to be, like we were saying before, who's going to be honest and listening to each other and reacting and being in the moment. And I maybe that's the key too, is to be in the moment. And I know that's another one of those cliches, but you know, it's a cliche for a reason. You know, I think clearing your head, trying not to judge, being honest, reacting to what you're seeing in front of you is going to make something happen musically. And I think that's the beauty of improvisation, is because whatever that happens to be is something that none of the musicians could have potentially conceived of, one, independently of each other, but without all these, you know, factors or forces coming together, there's not going to be that chemical reaction unless everyone's really being honest with it and being in the moment. And I think as a musician, you can feel, you know, when things are kind of going one way or another based on someone's intentions. And I think if you can have pure intentions in the moment while you're playing music, I think the listener responds to that. I think that's what the thing is. It's like that live moment. That's the thing, you know, and that's what we're all after. And, you know, I think you get there some nights you don't. That's how it goes.
Right on. Yeah, no, totally. And so you mentioned the band that you're going to be playing with tonight. Can you tell us who they are, and then how you're kind of conceptualizing the set that you'll be playing tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So tonight we'll have Gabe Mangione on drums, Chantel Ducart on keys, Wyatt Ware on bass, and Nate Miller on horns, playing sax and trumpet. So the tunes we're going to be playing are all mine. Go figure. JJ Murphy Quintet. So I guess somebody's got to bring the tunes, right? But we're doing a few. We'll see how many we have time for. You know, it's a relatively short set, a lot of acts tonight. So we'll be playing all my tunes. Some of them are brand spanking new. We're going into the studio next month with Octave Records here in town to record kind of a quartet record. It's kind of a trio plus a keyboardist, so that makes it a quartet. But we'll be doing some of those, and I'm really excited to put them in front of an audience for the first time and kind of have that missing piece of, you know, the listener, to see how see what kind of chemical reaction we can make tonight.
Hey, I think it's always great to get a little road test in there, and, you know, just have a chance to see how you expand on maybe some of those when you're in front of people. And I would imagine, and I've talked to a number of artists about festival sets in general, and what a great thing festivals are, because it is that really always such a unique mix, and you're never going to really have the same experience twice, even if you play the same festival multiple times. But I would think that putting together a festival set does require some extra thinking, or different kinds of thinking about it. Would
Sure.
you agree with that?
No, 100%. I mean, we were literally just talking about that last night at rehearsal, but just due to the time, we've got 45 minutes. A lot of the times when we play, usually a set will be like, an hour and a half or a little bit longer. But for tonight, we just had to be a little bit more specific on who's going to solo on what tunes. And that was a fun conversation. And, I got to be honest, one of the new ones is kind of hard. I didn't mean to write such a challenging piece. It just kind of came out that way. But I was so impressed with how well everyone made the changes, so to speak, and just nailed it. So I'm so excited to put that in front of an audience tonight, to kind of see to bring it to life in that aspect. But yeah, I think, with festival sets, it just depends. On this one, it feels really special in the sense that it's a festival, but it's in, a listening room environment for, and I think that's going to make things more, sometimes when you play on these larger stages, and you're trying to do more of an in the moment thing, it feels like the audience is far away, and how are they reacting? You can't feel their energy in the same way you can when you're, their tables are right up front to the stage. Yeah. So I think there's something really special about that.
Yeah, I've had to kind of keep reminding myself, when I'm envisioning this festival, to not think about the band shell or other other places where I would typically associate in Boulder with seeing it.
That's what I was thinking too, the band shell.
Yeah, but you're right, and it is so intimate. I would love to talk a little bit about songwriting. So you just mentioned a tune that you've been working on, and process. This is something that is endlessly fascinating to me, and always has been. Do you have a particular process for when you approach songwriting?
It changes over time. I think lately it's been a lot of get up and try to write it first thing in the morning and then go about my day, come back to it at night kind of thing. I feel like a lot of the songs I write, they seem to kind of be in my head already, so to speak. And I think a lot of the tunes we'll be playing tonight really, I know it's another cliche, but they felt like they wrote themselves. I kind of first thing in the morning, I'm like, what is this I'm hearing? I just sit down at the guitar and kind of start to play it. And it almost isn't so much like I'm coming up with something as much as it feels like maybe I'm recalling something I've heard before and I'm trying to remember how it goes. So one of the ways I practice is to try to learn a tune from memory. So that, I keep almost saying so to speak, so I'll cut myself off. But I'll learn a song, maybe, it might be a Beatles song or anything, right? That I'll try to put together in my head what it is and then play it on the guitar. And I think my writing process has almost become the same thing, but when I feel like I'm trying to remember how it goes, it's actually a song that doesn't exist yet. It's just kind of working its way out through my brain one way or another. And I think a lot of musicians and creatives and that sort of thing, it's kind of a similar process. I think, I put so much music in and then something's got to come back out. You know what I mean? So it's like, I've been listening to a lot of Venezuelan folk music, and I don't know how it's coming out, but I know it's coming out. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like what goes in is going to come back out one way or another.
Well, so that's true. And I love, I always love being kind of turned on to different musical styles, music from different parts of the world, that a lot of things can feel very familiar, but also carry their local context and culture with them. I think that's a really special thing when you find something that it's like it connects, but it's also something new. I just was turned on to a Thai drummer.
Oh, okay.
Just released a new album, and as I'm saying that, I'm like, I need to go and make sure I find the name, because I was just so kind of amazed that I was hearing an album that had just come out, and I felt like, okay, like this is absolutely incredible stuff. And so
let's check that out.
Yeah, I'll have to send you a link. It's funny because I'm
actually, I appreciate it.
Right now, let's see, date added. I'll be able to find this.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a really, I think, a cool thing. And these days, of course, we could find pretty much anything we want, at any time. So there's so much out there.
Right.
For you, what would you say is the best way for people to find your music or find out kind of what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got a website, Instagram, social media, and all that, and we're on Spotify. So I know this sounds kind of lame, but honestly, if you just search JJ Murphy music or anything like that, or guitar, or just I think JJ Murphy, I come up pretty quick. But you can find me. My website's jjmurphymusic.com. And then I believe that's the same for all my social media handles, JJ Murphy Music. And then I've got a YouTube channel too, also JJ Murphy Music. So it should be pretty easy to find.
That's awesome. And so I've got the name now. I didn't want to leave that hanging.
Yeah,
Salin, Salin. I'll send you a link. So
yeah, okay.
Thai-born drummer, and she mixes kind of traditional Northeastern Thai music with 70s psychedelia and kind of West African.
That sounds awesome.
Oh my God, it's so good.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I dig it. Well, I want to just give a quick shout out to Roots Music Project. And if people are listening and haven't gotten tickets yet, I think it's rmptix.com or Eventbrite has
that
tickets.
Sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. If I remember that.
Anyway.
Pretty sure. And it's $32.50 for a single day and only $50 for both nights. And it's basically, 5 hours or so of music each day, which is incredible amount of music for that price. So
absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a great deal.
It is. It truly is. What else do you have coming up this year? You mentioned that you're going to be doing some recording. Anything else you'd want to share with us before?
Let me think. I probably should have written this down or something. But yeah, recording next month with Wyatt Ware and Braxton Kahn and Tom Amend at Octave Records here in Boulder. Then I'll be playing. I'm even sooner than that. What is it? Next weekend, playing at Foco Max with Hunter James and the Titanic, as well as the Ren Van Band. And she's a super talented singer. She lives in Nashville now, but she's out of Boulder. She's only, what is she, like 20 maybe? Not even. She might only be 19.
I've been following her on Instagram for a couple years.
Have you? She's incredible. Yeah. And then I'm playing at Boulder Creek Festival. Wait, I'm missing stuff. Sorry, that's why I got to write it down. Playing with the Sweet Lilies a few times this month. So I'm playing with them at Swallow Hill on May 17th. And then I'm going to do the Sunday night headlining set with them at Creek Fest. And then the next night at Creek Fest, I'm playing with the Boulder Bandshell Sound Machine, which is closing out the night with a ton of awesome guests. So many, I can't even think of them right now. First one that comes to mind is Natalie Cressman from the Trey Anastasio band. She's incredible. I'm actually going to do something with her husband at some point too, Ian Ficchini. Yeah, he's amazing guitarist. So I'm really looking forward to that. So, but yeah, no, it's busy time. I'm sure I'm leaving stuff out, but that's all I got in my brain right now.
I'll share some links and we'll make sure people know where to get all that information.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Have an awesome show. Hang on for just a second.
Sure.
I would be remiss, and I always forget to say like and subscribe. That's always slips my mind. Let me take us on out of here. And for everybody else out there, hope you all have a great weekend. And thank you for watching. Let me see here. I'm going to remember how to do this. There we go.